Good afternoon. My name is Kristan Weisdack. I'm the CEO and founder of BehaviorWorx of Southwestern PA. And I have an amazing mom with a special needs kiddo, Melissa. She is here with us today to talk a little bit about her journey. And now your kiddo, he's what, 4 years old now, right?
He's almost 10.
He's 10. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we were talking before, I have to preface this conversation. We had another conversation before our interview, but we were talking with one of the OTs that you used to work with. And
Yes.
so you've also been through early intervention. So if we could just kind of start there, going through early intervention and some of that story.
Sure. So Evan, like I said, he's almost 10 years old. He was diagnosed at age 2 with autism. And it was around the same time that I started suspecting that he had some issues with food allergies. And he was eventually, after several years, diagnosed with an intolerance to dairy, gluten, and to a lesser extent, soy. He still struggles with all of that today. And I do notice that he gets a little more agitated. He has more behaviors when he does get the foods he's not supposed to eat. It's a real struggle now because like I said, he is autistic. He doesn't understand really what he can and cannot eat. And having a younger sibling in the house who is allowed to eat everything makes life a little challenging sometimes. So Evan was diagnosed young with autism. He started exhibiting signs of, I always say something going on. I wasn't sure what it was. I had no idea developmentally wise, kind of what he should have been doing at 12, 13, 14 months old. But I knew it wasn't exactly right. I had never really been around kids that age before. I mean, he was my first child. None of my friends had kids. None of my siblings had kids. The day he was born was probably the first time I'd ever held a newborn. I literally had not one clue what to do with this kid. So I was brand new. I was obviously a new mom, but I was new to it all. And so I relied a lot on my pediatrician for guidance, and obviously my parents and my in-laws and that sort of thing. But I started suspecting around 13, 14 months old, when he didn't start to talk, that there might be an issue. So a lot of people say that eye contact is like the first indicator, where I never thought, and that was all the pediatrician would ask me, is does he make eye contact with you? And I was, yeah, he looks at me like, of course, I don't understand the question. Like, he looks at me. He's a baby. Like, I don't know. But he never started talking. He never really babbled. He just made sounds. So I guess I thought that was babbling. But he never said any words. And it was about just after his first birthday, I started questioning the doctor and saying, what is this? What's going on? And the doctor said, wait till he turns 2. If he doesn't talk by the time he turns 2, then we'll address it. I'm like, okay, but from all these, stacks of mom books that I'm reading, he should really be starting to talk by now. And they're like, no, we don't worry about it till he's 2. Like, okay. So I tried not to worry about it. And he, never started talking. He didn't interact with other kids, which I noticed when he started going into the nursery at church, that he didn't play with the other kids. He sat in a corner by himself. He didn't interact with, the adults that were there. And that, when I saw him with other kids his age, is when I really noticed there's something wrong. And I started pushing harder at the pediatrician. I'm like, there's something going on here. I don't know what it is, but I know that there's something going on. And the pediatrician said, no, wait till he's 2. It's fine. Wait till he's 2. Well, then he turned 2. And I said, okay, now what? He's 2. And the doctor said, well, you can call early intervention, I guess. And I'm like, what's early intervention? And I left the pediatrician's office with absolutely no guidance, no idea what was next. Like, nobody wanted to utter the word autism or developmental disability, or, you know, nobody said anything. I was completely clueless. So that's when I figured out what early intervention was. I had to Google it because he didn't tell me. I wish that there had been some sort of handout, a flyer, a brochure, you know, something that explained anything. So I set out on my own and, you know, but yeah, I guess I just became one of those mama bears and just was like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of doing what I'm told. And I'm going to figure this out on my own. And I ended up taking him to the Children's Developmental Unit in Pittsburgh and getting a diagnosis of autism by the time he was 2.5. So we did go to early intervention. We had different therapists, and they would come to the house and start working with him. I started researching different things, and one of the suggestions that I found that I read was gluten causing behavior problems, and you know, taking them off of gluten, which I had to figure out what gluten was because I had no idea. Everybody was like, you know, gluten this. I'm like, I don't know what gluten is. So that was a steep learning. That was a learning curve, like just figuring out what on earth it even is so that I can take it away, you know. So I started that on my own before I even suspected an allergy. I was like, I'm just going to try this because, you know, it says that it helps with behaviors and could help with his you know, the autism diagnosis, you know, help with, you know, him maybe talk. And I mean, at that point I was like, I just want to hear him talk. You know, it was a very rough time for me. So I took him off I started weaning him off of the gluten, you know, replacing one thing at a time. Like first I changed his bread, and then I would change, you know, his crackers, and, you know, I couldn't do it all at once because I was dealing with a kid who has autism, and anybody who has a kid with autism knows they're insanely picky eaters. And it doesn't matter, you know, what you say or what you do, they're not going to understand that what you're trying to do for them. So it was a process to switch pastas and switch the bread and find something that he'd eat. So it was a very long process to actually get him completely off of gluten. And once I did, I did notice a small change. You know, he seemed happier. He didn't have as many fits, episodes, breakdowns, whatever you want to call them, temper tantrums. He just seemed like a generally slightly happier kid. But there was still something going on. He obviously he was nonverbal. He still wasn't talking. He had no way of communicating whatsoever. At that point in his life, he didn't use the PEX cards, the picture cards. He couldn't point. Like if I said what hurts, he wouldn't point to anything. The most he would do until not too long ago, I mean, is go to the refrigerator when he was thirsty. He would go take my hand and take me to the refrigerator. It was pretty much the only thing he could communicate is I'm hungry or I'm thirsty. And what he wanted was beyond me, but that was the extent of his communication skills, was to take my hand to the refrigerator. So I had to guess what was bothering him. And I'll never forget one night we had been at a birthday party and he ate a cupcake. He took a cupcake. He didn't understand that he wasn't supposed to eat the cupcake, and all the other kids were eating the cupcake, so he took the cupcake and he ate the whole thing. And he laid on the floor in his bedroom screaming and crying all night long. And I don't know how else to describe it except flopping on the floor looking like a fish out of water, like for hours. And my child is miserable. It was all I could think. I don't know what to do for him. Like, he is in pain. I don't know what is going on. And so I started Googling again. The exact thing people tell you not to do is go to WebMD and Google symptoms, but I did, and because it was the only way I was getting any sort of answers out of anybody. So with all of his symptoms, and I guess if anybody who's watching this video, probably I can say this. Googling the what his bowel movements look like. I'm sure that all of you moms out there have done that.
When we work in early intervention, you work with kids, you have more conversations than she'd ever like about bowel movements. It's okay.
Yes. So I started. So I started suspecting that maybe he had a dairy allergy, and so I talked to the pediatrician about it, which was the same practice but a different doctor. And she also said, no, I don't think that's it. I don't think it's dairy. That doesn't sound like a dairy allergy. And I kept thinking, yep, but the internet says it is.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not sure. And she goes, no, that's not it. That's not it. I'm like, well, then what is it? Like, if that's not it, what is it? Because my kid is obviously in pain. She goes, well, he can't tell it. I'm like, no, he can't tell us what hurts, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to fix it. It was very, very frustrating. And this went on for a while. And it wasn't until he was over 4 years old, that we finally got a doctor to do blood work. Because I had asked my original pediatrician, can we do blood work and test for allergies? And they said, no, that's not it. We don't need to do that. I'm like, but it's just a blood test. Can we please just do it? Like, what harm is it going to cause to just run the test? Even if it just makes me feel less crazy, just please, let's just do it. Well, so I had finally had enough, and I ended up going to see a developmental pediatrician in Pittsburgh. And the first thing that she said when I walked in there is, "Oh, we're testing for everything." And I was like, oh, it was the biggest relief, because it had been 2 or 3 plus years of me begging doctors to pay attention to me and say, and hear what I'm saying and offer some sort of plan to move forward. And she said, we're testing for everything. We're going to test for every allergy, all of his levels, all the different vitamins, and everything. There was so much blood. They took so much blood. I didn't know if there was any left in that little kid. But it was so nice to finally get some answers. So that is when he was finally officially diagnosed with the gluten and dairy intolerance. He's not allergic. He doesn't have a full-on allergy. I like to tell his teachers and therapists and things, it's not EpiPen worthy. It's nothing to be totally scared about. But it's an intolerance, and it does cause him lots of discomfort when he does eat something he shouldn't. And it's the discomfort that I think causes the behaviors. Where if my stomach hurt that bad, I wouldn't be too pleasant to be around either. That's how I feel like he's acting the same way we would all want to act if we were in as much pain as he is.
Yeah.
So he can't concentrate at school. He acts out and throws things and won't follow instructions, and it does interrupt his life a lot when he ends up eating something that he shouldn't. So it's real tough, especially because he doesn't know really what he can and cannot eat. I know a lot of people who have kids with food allergies. I'm totally impressed by their parenting skills, how they get these preschoolers to ask what's in the food and, make sure that they're not eating the nuts or whatever it is, that especially the ones that do have the very serious allergies. I'm totally impressed by their parenting skills, because I don't know how they get their little ones to pay such close attention to it without scaring them to death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge undertaking. And I think the message that I'm hearing from you is that the pediatrician just wasn't listening and you had to find a lot of resources on your own. So what are some of the resources that you'd say that you've stumbled upon that have helped you the most?
Well, I mean, from the beginning with the autism diagnosis, I live in a small town, and so there's not a lot of resources here. That's a whole other issue.
Mm-hmm.
So for the majority of our things, we have to go to Pittsburgh, and that's not just autism. That's pretty much everything around here. If you have anything above a paper cut, you have to leave town. But so everything was, down to Children's Hospital, which is a mammoth organization to navigate. And it was overwhelming, and it was intimidating, and I didn't know what kind of doctor to call. And, you call and you end up getting on an appointment for like 4 or 5 months later. And so I was like, I don't want to hedge my bets on this is the right kind of doctor when I've got to wait 6 months every time I want to see a new doctor. Like he'll be an adult by the time I get any answers at that rate. So I think the pediatricians having this is who you call. This is early intervention. This is speech therapists. These are the ones in town. These are the ones that service our communities. This is where you go to get a diagnosis. I didn't even know where to take him to get a diagnosis. So, just having that information in a nice, little brochure, a flyer, something that you can send home with the parents for who does what. Because it is really overwhelming, especially when you're dealing with parents with little kids and there's something wrong. Like, it terrifies parents and they don't know what to do. So something to walk them through it a little bit, and instead of just having to, put us out there on our own. So in our town, we do have a therapist, a place that does speech and physical therapy, just one. And so they get they're very crowded, and so sometimes families will have to drive a half hour just to see a speech therapist. Outside of early intervention. So people that don't know, early intervention goes to when you're 3. Once you turn 3, then you move on to another
group, if you will.
Yeah, another group. You're in a different category, which once I finally figured out that early intervention is birth to age 3, and my doctor didn't even tell me about it till he was 2, I was through the roof. Like, what do you mean? Like, he could have been seeing somebody for 2 years and you didn't even tell me that this thing exists.
Yeah.
That was frustrating.
Well, that's the one thing. So if anybody's watching this, if you're a parent, you're in the same situation that Melissa was in, if you just Google your county name, again, we're bringing up Google, it's helpful. But if you put in your county name, let's say you're doing Allegheny County early intervention, you can actually give them a call and talk to their service coordination unit and ask about early intervention services and have somebody come out and do an assessment on your kiddo. And it's free of charge. It depends on how your insurance goes, but navigating through that system can be quite cumbersome on your own. But like you said, just having the right people to call in the beginning. Another thing that you had mentioned too is the difference between a pediatrician and a developmental pediatrician. So I just want to clarify for those watching, a developmental pediatrician actually specializes in development and behavior. So they have specialized training to work with kiddos. and that was a turning point for us too, and being able to get that blood work for my kids. And so it can be really frustrating when, you know, you're trying to navigate the system, you're not getting heard by your doctor. Are there any other, let's say, online resources, any groups that you've been on Facebook that have been helpful, or any other connections that you've made?
Well, there are several Facebook, of course, there's a lot of Facebook groups, but there's one specifically for Pittsburgh area parents of children with autism that's very helpful, because they can give you specific recommendations for local doctors. Like I'm in national groups too, but which is good because it's good for moral support and, you know, general help. But being in a more local group, they can say, you need to call this doctor. They'll give you the phone number. Like people are excellent at helping you out that way in the local groups. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but, you know, Pittsburgh Autism. Search that on Facebook, you'll find it.
Yeah, you'll find a plethora of information.
Yeah, there's also Pennsylvania groups, which are nice too, because every state's services vary. So if you're in the Pennsylvania group, they can help you out with advice navigating the school systems and the TSS, which aren't TSSs anymore. They changed their name.
So they changed all of it. Yeah. They went from
they're different initials right now, but I can't remember what it is.
That's okay.
That's one thing as a special needs mom, you basically, like, it's alphabet soup. Everything's initials.
It should come with a dictionary and to say, like, these are the names.
It really should. It really should. It's crazy. So that helps to be in the local and the state groups, because everything does vary service wise. I mean, Ohio doesn't have a TSS program, so it's very different state to state. Where Pennsylvania is very blessed to have the Act 64 waiver, so all of our kiddos automatically get covered by the state medical assistance. So all of their services are completely free, which is amazing. Most states don't have that, and families end up paying an insane amount of money for services.
Yeah,
we're really lucky.
Yeah, well, because that for people watching, it's the 0 to 3 is the early intervention, and then the 3 to 5 you have IU, you have Head Start, early Head Start. But also that 3 to 21 population, the acronym that Melissa was referring to, they've changed it from BHRS, which is Behavioral Health Rehabilitation Services. Now it's IBHS. So that's where that 3 to 21 population is covered for those mental health, those behavioral health services in the state. And so you have generally a bachelor's level clinician, a master's level clinician, that will come in and formulate a plan, determine, talking about the functions of your kiddo's behavior and developing interventions, developing a treatment plan. And so you have to go from learning one set of, these are your people, these are their acronyms, and this is your IFSP, and then you transition into that 3 to 21, and it's now a treatment plan and a whole new set of people.
And then you go to school, and there's an IEP.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And so
more acronyms, guys.
Yeah. And it's great to connect, like you said, with those networks and find people online, but doing your own research too, connecting with people you trust, finding trusted healthcare practitioners, I think is the key, and connecting with those that are going to listen to you. So yeah, it's been such a journey, and I know that you're still on it. So any last words that you would want to say to any parents that might be listening?
I am by nature a very shy, soft-spoken person, and I know that anybody who's watching this has kiddos with little extra needs, or you probably wouldn't have found this video. So I would encourage you to embrace your inner mama bear and stand up for your kids. And because even if you don't know, your gut knows when something is going on, and stand up for them, speak out, reach out to the world. This was almost 10 years ago for me, so Facebook wasn't what it is now. Like, man, that makes me feel old. But so you guys have resources that even I didn't have, as far as being able to find a community of other parents to help you out. So, and I have never met a mom or a dad of a special needs kid that isn't ready to help out another parent who needs help, because we've all been there and we all know how hard it is, emotionally as well as physically, and just it's all very taxing. And I think that you can do it. Like, trust me, you have it in you. So stand up for your kids and for yourself, and even if you have to fight a little bit and get outside of your comfort zone to do it, because I definitely had to. And I think that it was tough, but we all can do it. So
well, to make that fight a little bit easier, two things, and we'll close out. Two things that brought to my mind is using Autism Speaks as a resource, because they have a great online directory, comprehensive directory. Sometimes in other areas it's better, but of local providers that you can reach out to. But also here in Pennsylvania, we're blessed to have an organization called Parent to Parent. So Parent to Parent is all about, like you said, helping build that network, not just online, but somebody maybe that's local that you can meet in person with and have play dates and set those interactions up, because then you're not going to have to, and I've been in that situation with parents, explain why your kiddo is going up and hugging other kids right away, or why they can't wait their turn. You know what I mean? That you kind of get each other and you kind of vibe. So it's all about building.
It's so nice to find other parents who understand. I have this one friend who we were doing, it was a Zoom meeting, and she said, my kid just ate an entire head of lettuce. I'm like, that's cool. Like,
vegetables, yay.
Good for you.
Yeah, nothing when you work in this space, it's acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that finding other families who get you and get your family is very important. And can celebrate wins like that other people are just not going to get.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing information about your journey. And it's not always easy to put yourself out there like that. But I think the reason that I wanted to talk is because I find that so many families that I work with in early intervention and beyond just need to feel sometimes like they're not alone, and that there are additional resources. So it's been a privilege to talk to you today, Melissa. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Take care.